The world went crazy yesterday with the release of Taylor Swift's new album, Life of a Showgirl. And like many who have a love for Taylor Swift, I listened to her new album and I have thoughts, many of them. And what really came up for me was the idea of the good girl archetype and how Taylor Swift has really embodied that archetype for most of her life. And then she has been projected on, she has been made to be a villain. And then in certain ways, she has tried to reclaim that villain archetype. And yet, there are these sneaky, subtle, insidious ways that she still clutches on to being a good girl. And what this made me think about was all of my clients who have this insidious good girl woven into them and myself who has had the good healer, the good person, the being right. Like we all have this good girl, good boy, good person archetype woven into us in some capacity, and the ways that it shows up for us is sneaky and it's insidious, and it gets perpetuated through society in the most harmful of ways. And Taylor Swift highlights this to me. Welcome to your OK Academy of Healing, Expanding, Spiritually Transforming, and Mastering Energetics. I'm your host, Yarok. This is my cat, Aslan. He loves to be here for all the things. I am a leadership mentor, nervous system genius, clinically trained therapist, spiritual teacher, and all-around energetic sorceress. And Taylor Swift fascinates me for a multitude of reasons. For one, I did a video about how she is a literal marketing genius and how detrimental marketing geniuses are to our sense of self and to our relationship with ourselves. And on another hand, she has this, and so I wrote this post. My question is, will Taylor Swift ever actually allow the raw, dark, and feral parts of her to actually come out? Because she has this very dark side and you can feel it. And in the song Canceled, she's speaking to welcome to my underworld. And I listened to that and I listened to the lyrics and I watched some of what happens and swirls around her. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not going to let yourself go there. You're going to hold on to this good girl archetype of now I'm with the football player and look at how quote unquote healthy our love is. I am not here to say that I actually know anything about them or their relationship. I am an energetic sorceress. I am also a freaking genius when it comes to humans. And my loves, we are multifaceted. We have all things inside of us. And some of us are literal geniuses. And when you're a literal genius, you go to the darkest depths of hell in your soul and in your being. And if you are not allowing yourself to really connect to that, it's going to come out in really sneaky, crafty, sideways ways. And we also, as humans, really crave belonging. So when I watch someone like Taylor Swift and I can see this good girl just oozing out of her in these like sneaky, insidious ways, and yet I can sense this real tilt towards the darkness, this real edge towards something deeper, something darker, like Persephone wanting to go into the underworld. And I see this a lot in the world of women waking up to the divine feminine who maybe once were in the Christian world or were good girls. They have this awakening and then they go to this certain point and they're like, oh, I went to my dark edges. And I'm like, you haven't even touched your dark edges. Like you have danced with them, you've maybe flirted with them, but like, are you actually gonna go there, or are you gonna go, oh no, I'm gonna stay in the good girl trope, I'm gonna stay in this like wanting to be perceived in a certain way? The good girl is so insidious, the way that it will grip its claws into you and make you into something you are not. And I see this with Taylor Swift. Now, I don't know her. I don't know her life. I only know what she markets to us and my perceptions. So I own that. Like, I don't know any of this for certain. What I do know is I know humans, and I know that we can't get away from our own darkness. And if you're to look at Taylor Swift and her past relationships, and there was a lot of, that what people call toxic, quote unquote, right? And my question for her would be, did you actually take those and transform the lessons? Or did you just shame yourself for having those relationships and then clutch on to the first quote unquote healthy guy who is obsessed with you because it's pretty clear he's obsessed with her, and now you think everything's okay? Because if you're determining that everything's okay based upon being able to have a relationship, you're actually avoiding many, 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 many parts of yourself. And this is what we often will do in our world. Determine whether or not we are acceptable in society based upon if we're doing what we quote unquote should. And this is integral to the good girl archetype. If you are doing the right thing, if you are a good girl, if you're seen as a good girl, if you have all of your life in order the way a good girl should, you have the relationship, you're loved, you have friends, you have everything that you quote unquote should in society, then you're a good girl and then you feel safe. Now, you may start to have some awakenings to your dark side, but if you don't actually feel safe enough to go there and to be quote unquote socially unacceptable, you notice I'm using air quotes there because what we have deemed as acceptable in society is also often a lot of persona and a lot of lies. And so if you don't feel safe to be not acceptable in the eyes of society, you will avoid parts of yourself, and then those parts of yourself will get shoved into the shadow, and then they will come out in dark, insidious ways. And they could come out in sickness, in mental sickness, emotional sickness. You could have anxiety. Your anxiety could be a mask for the fact that you're shaming yourself all day long. Like you could be like, oh my God, did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Did I be the right thing? Did I da 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 da? And then you can maybe, and this is how I view Taylor Swift, feel like you're reclaiming those parts of you by then using them in your art. You know, like if someone says bad things about you and it hurts your feelings, but you're then write a song about it, you're like, see, I got it back. But like, have you actually processed it? Have you processed the rage? Because one of the things with a good girl archetype is you don't feel safe to feel your rage. You actually don't think rage or anger is an acceptable emotion at all because you've been conditioned to believe that you need to be perfect, prim and proper, and say the right thing and do the right thing and look the right way. And processing all of that is an act of courage. And if you haven't processed all of that, if it's still showing up in these sneaky and insidious ways, then you're always going to be sacrificing yourself for the good girl archetype. You're never going to think it's actually okay to be as rageful as you actually are. You're never going to think it's actually okay to say the thing you need to say. You're never going to think it's actually okay to have had the relationships you've had and tend those lessons through so that you can actually live an authentic life. Are you living an authentic life? Or are you just doing what you think you should? Are you living the way that you desire to live, or are you living in a way that you think you're supposed to live? Are you looking for saving? And this is one of the things about Taylor and Travis that I think about, like the way that people, and this has nothing to do with them aside, their personal life aside, I am not in their life. I don't exactly know, but what I know is there are so many women on social media who are like, this proves that love is real and you can find a man who sees you and adores you and loves you. Not that we shouldn't all have that. All women are meant to be adored, are meant to be seen, are meant to be revered. Unfortunately, sometimes when you have the man who sees you and adores you and reveres you, he is pedestaling you. And is there equality? Are you actually in it together as mirrors for each other? Or are you pedestaled and you're then not having to face the darkest parts of you, the wounded parts of you, the parts that need tending to? And so when I look at their relationship and then I look at how women respond to their relationship as like he's the savior who came in and saved her from all these fucked up men that she was dating, she's not a little girl. And this is little girl energy. It's not embodied woman energy. It's not her reclaiming the dark parts of herself, owning them, and actually being in the world as the embodied woman who is actually more like a Persephone than she is the good girl. Obviously, I don't know her, but the reality is that we do this all the time. Think about 50 Shades of Grey. Everybody was obsessed with Christian and how he chose that girl whose name I can't even remember. And it's all this little girl inside of women who wanted daddy to come in and save them. This is little girl energy. Oh, look, she finally has healthy love. She finally has someone who sees her and loves her and adores her. And again, we are all meant to be seen and loved and adored that way. But my loves, true divine cosmic love is going to be a mirror for you, and you're gonna have to look at all the bullshit that you have tucked away and hidden. It is not going to be something that just comes in and saves you and all of a sudden everything's perfect. That is a literal lie, and it is so disconnected and disembodied from your soul's journey. Your soul's journey is meant to awaken all parts of you so that you can bring them all forward, so that you can integrate into wholeness, so that you can become who you're meant to be and connected to your heart, your soul, your spirit, your breath. It is not meant to be the perfect picture. And when anything is presented to you as the perfect picture, it's a fucking lie. And it is marketed to you to make you think that now they've figured it out. We as humans, we want an answer. We want to know, oh, I got the thing. I'm in the perfect relationship now. Look, I did it. Everything I did up until this point led to you. Here's the facts. Everything you do up until any point leads to this exact moment in life, but that's not the end. That is just the beginning of the next phase. And what is the next phase going to look like? And when you're dealing with someone as genius as Taylor Swift and who obviously has a dark side, where's she going to put it? And so this, how you apply this to you, because I want you to always apply everything to you. This is not just an analysis of Taylor Swift. The reason I even go here is because I watch the internet blow up with like, oh my God, and look how Travis loves her, and look at this, and look at that. And now she wrote about his big giant cock in wood, and oh my God, we're just so happy for her. Sure. Where's the darkness going? Where's your darkness going? Where is Taylor Swift a mirror for how you still think the good girl archetype is the way to be? How deeply insidious is the good girl archetype woven into your being? Are you able to be the villain in someone's life without making yourself wrong? Are you able to let someone else perceive that you are wrong to protect and honor yourself? Are you able to sit with that truly? Because one could argue Taylor Swift is making songs about it, so she's, artistically processing it through. But energetically, is that the truth? Or is she just trying to prove her innocence because she still needs to be seen as the good girl? Because a lot of what has happened to her in terms of how she's been villainized could be the universe wanting to give her the lesson to break the good girl archetype and actually be the dark, like she writes about the poison flower in the underworld, like that's in her. I feel it. She has not in any capacity let herself explore it. And how you apply that to yourself is you go, where have I not allowed myself to explore that? Because we live in this world that is devoid of eros. It's devoid of desire. And you actually can't fake desire. You can force yourself into a box. You can have a very happy, very quote unquote loving relationship, but it doesn't mean it will have desire. It doesn't mean it will have fire. It doesn't mean it will light you up and make you feel juicy inside. It doesn't mean it will make you feel alive. And we are actually ridden with example after example after example of people who are just living lives because they're good, quote unquote, rather than actually embodied in the juiciness of their true desires and allowing all the darkest parts to come forward in a way where they can actually tend to them and channel them and look at them and be with them and then create their life in a way that feels actually authentic. We're not taught to look at, so if we again use Taylor Swift as an example, all of her past relationships as the lessons they were meant to be. Where were they mirroring her own darkness, her own woundedness, her own inner child? Where were they mirroring her anxious attachment? Where were they mirroring where she actually doesn't value herself or worship at the altar of who she actually is? There's a lot of proving energy that comes forward with Taylor Swift. Like she has to prove who she is. She has to prove that she's good. She has to prove that a man loves her. Like she made herself wrong because she couldn't figure it out in the relationship department, which is a very old, ancient societal conditioning that women aren't okay unless they have a man. The women aren't okay unless they have a man. So if you want to buy into that, that's fine. But if we trace back thousands of years, there were high priestesses who never were owned by one man. And they may have had many relationships with men in a very ethical, sex magic sort of way, where they were actually coming into sacred union for creation between the two so that they could birth a third. which is it's then become a Jungian concept. The opposite tension of the opposites comes together, creates a third, right? And so this was happening in terms of sex magic, but you were never necessarily with one man or owned by one man, or you didn't have to create a husband wife relationship and children. It's a newer concept actually, and it's was based more on business, but now we have idealized based off of our Disney fantasy fairy tale stories of a woman being saved by a man and being loved forever by him. It's not how it goes when you're looking at actual divine cosmic love and the growth and evolution of a human soul, spirit, and actual expansion into the world. We are meant to be mirrors for each other in multiple ways in all of our relationships. And when we are just shaming ourselves for the quote unquote toxic ones, we're not mining the gold out of those relationships. And if we're pedestaling the quote unquote healthy ones, we're often not looking at where we're repressing parts of ourselves because we think we're doing the right thing or the good thing, which is the good girl archetype. This is such a big subject, and it's so sneaky and so insidious within every human on this planet because we think that if we don't do the quote unquote right thing, that we're going to die. And then we have shame. We have shame, and then we avoid the shame, and then we get anxiety, or we shame ourselves and we go into these shame spirals, or we try to like avoid the actual pieces of us that need tending to because it's really uncomfortable to be with them, or we don't think they're acceptable. And so we think, oh, well, I'm going to do the quote unquote right thing. And then your soul starts to slowly die. Like I said, you can't force desire. You can't force eros. You can't force connection that is meant to come together in this magical way so that you actually are creating together. Like we are meant to experience each other. And especially if you're attuned to yourself at a spiritual level, we're meant to experience each other in a way that's actually creating through each energetic uh, relationship, right? Like we come together, whether it's friendships, whether it's business partnerships or collaborations or romantic relationships. Every relationship that exists, there is gold to mine from that relationship. And when you can mine that gold from that relationship and you can create with it, you can actually evolve and expand. And so when I listen to Taylor Swift's music, I hear a lot of contraction, a lot of judgment towards herself and towards others, a lot of thinking she's reclaiming the victim or the villain narrative, but she's actually just being a victim. A lot of pedestaling, quote unquote, healthy love. Again, not here to judge their relationship. It's not mine. I don't know it. What I do know is she's really been hard on herself for her past relationships, and there's gold to mine from those. And she pedestals this relationship, which we're meant to be mirrors for each other. And if you're actually doing the work to grow and expand as a human, your romantic partner is going to mirror back to you all of your most beautiful parts and also all of your ugliest parts. And if you don't know how to be with those, I call them ugly, they're really just wounded. They're parts that need tending to, they're parts that need holding, they're parts that come out sideways. If you don't know how to be with those and your partner doesn't know how to be with those and you don't know how to do it together, you're just going to get locked into this societal trope of what is acceptable. And then, especially when you're in a position where you need to sell a certain facade to people, you're going to continue selling that facade because you're going to think you have to stay in the good girl archetype. And this is so insidious in our world. We don't even know all the ways it is wrapped up in our survival, especially for women, because women for many years, thousands really, could not exist without a man. They couldn't own property, they couldn't have money, they couldn't exist without having a man in their lives. And so it is so intertwined in our being that we need to have a man come in and be that other piece for us. Now, it's not to say that we aren't meant to have that relationship, but it's going to look different for everyone. And we're all on a path of expansion and evolution if we allow ourselves to be. And when we're conscious to it, when we're consciously creating our lives, we get to look at each relationship as what gold can I mine from this? And where am I making myself wrong? Where am I buying into the good girl archetype? What dark parts of me do I not think are acceptable? Can I bring them forward without shame and look at them and tend to them and love them and integrate them? What situations in my life are helping to bring these forward so that I can nurture them And can I allow that relationship or that situation to be something beautiful rather than shaming it? And if it is quote unquote toxic, this is where you need a guide in these situations. Like if you're attaching on, if you're holding on, if you're clinging on, then that's your attachment wounding, or you're making it mean something about you, or your worth is involved. That's another video, really. Like, I just had a client who went on a date for the first time in a while, and she kind of liked him but wasn't sure, and then all of her worth stuff started to come up, right? And it was like, oh, this isn't a real connection. There's a difference between a real connection versus just your attachment wounding and your worth stuff coming up. And you have to be able to discern between the two, because sometimes you're in a relationship with someone that people might call toxic, but there's a real connection there, and there's deep healing happening on both sides for both people, and it's going to transform into something else. Most people don't know how to discern between attachment and actually something that's meant to be evolving you. And everything will evolve you. You just have to allow for it. It just depends on the time it's going to take versus based on how conscious you are to what's actually happening. But if you don't know how to be conscious to it, if you don't know how to mine the gold from it, if you're buying into the marketing ploy that we are sold every fucking day that you're supposed to have this perfect looking life, then you're going to be continually banging your head against the wall. And when I look at Taylor Swift, I just think, ooh, the good girl archetype is still very alive. Are you going to let the darkness roam free? Are you going to let it actually come out? Or are you just going to give us little tidbits and teases of it in your songs? Because there is a lot of darkness in there that needs to be tended to, unearthed, set free, run wild. And we've not been taught that's okay. And if you really struggle with the good girl archetype, you're going to shame yourself to no end if those parts of you exist. And then you're going to continually feel repressed. You'll have a lack of libido, a lack of eros, a lack of joy, a lack of expansion. And you'll always feel like you have to subtly stifle who you actually are to fit into the mold of who you think you should be. And I know this is true for many good girls. And if you have had this good girl archetype and then you're like, oh, I found my dark side, but you're still sneakily, subtly avoiding, you're still people pleasing a little bit, you're still fitting yourself into a certain mold, you're still making yourself wrong for the dark things you think, you're still repressing your desire, you're still maybe not actually allowing those juices to fully flow intimately or sexually with yourself or with your partner. What's actually happening for you? What's actually going on there? Are you still fitting yourself into this mold because that's what society sells you? And what are the sneakiest and most subtle ways that you're doing it? What would happen if you allowed yourself to actually set yourself free? Could you be in your current life right now and feel okay about it if you got honest about who you are and you started to really let go of all of the good girl archetypes, narratives that are running through your brain? It's a real question. I want you to really sit with it and look at it because it's an important one. It is going to determine how you feel in your life. And so many people say they feel joy or they feel pleasure, but they don't actually embody it in their cells. They don't actually know what it feels like in their whole cells, in their whole being, to really let that expansive energy flow through them. Because what you do, all the other stuff is going to come up too. All the dark parts that you avoid, that you deny, that you shut down, that you repress. You can't feel joy without feeling pain. You can't feel pain without feeling joy. And so you have to be able to feel it all. And when you have been conditioned and sculpting yourself into the good girl archetype, actually allowing yourself to feel the messiness of emotions is going to feel quote unquote wrong. Then you're going to shame yourself for it. And then you're going to, skirt around it and lie to yourself and tell yourself you're feeling it, but you're still repressing. And then you're going to have physical symptoms or spiritual symptoms or mental symptoms or emotional symptoms that could look like SAD, seasonal affect disorder. It could look like migraines. It could look like inflammation. It could look like lack of libido. It could look like irritation with your partner or your kids or yourself. It could look like judgment, obsessing, overthinking, ruminating, shooting on yourself constantly, and then having all this shame, and then the shame turns into inflammation. Like, there are multiple ways this will show up. And so I ask you, in what ways are you idolizing Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce? In what ways are you idolizing the good girl archetype? In what ways are you shaming yourself because your life doesn't look like it quote unquote should? And what do you actually need to do to unlock the freedom within you to be all parts of you? If you are ready to actually delve into this deeper, my 8-week program, The Composer, is the perfect place for you. If you are someone who has done a lot of healing already and you know all of the things, and yet there are these sneaky, subtle ways where you are still ascribing to the good girl archetype, you are still repressing yourself, you're still denying yourself, you're still shutting yourself down, this program is for you. It is 8 weeks, 2-hour live calls once a week, a Telegram chat, a program called The Composer. It is designed to help you rewire at a nervous system and DNA level, embody pleasure and leadership. I say pleasure and leadership because we are so devoid of pleasure in this world. We don't actually even know what it feels like to experience pleasure, and we have disembodied leaders. So you can't actually be a full leader if you're coming from an activated inner child place, if you're coming from a should place, if you're saying you're pulling yourself out of society, but then you're yet still gripping on to the attachment of being accepted by society. That is not embodied leadership. And so you're going to embody your leadership and you're going to learn to be the composer of your life, to create the most beautiful symphony in it. This is beyond healing, it's beyond manifestation. It is really truly attuning to the subtle frequencies in your being so that you can get in touch with your soul, your spirit, your breath, and you can create literally the most beautiful symphony in your life that feels how you want it to feel without making yourself wrong along the way, to fall in love with your journey. So if you're interested in this, we start on October 23rd. You can reach out on Instagram. You can leave a comment underneath here. Let me know how this lands for you. Let me know where the good girl archetype is showing up for you. Let me know where you pedestal Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Let me know what happens for you when I talk about this, or if you get triggered because I'm talking about this. I would love to hear all the things. All right. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you soon.